Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the BAMF Video Store. Cyber and Zombie here, and it's Friday, so it is time for another recommendation. And this week I'm going to recommend a movie that I think most people have seen this movie. I don't usually recommend movies that I think a lot of people have seen. A lot of people say, I haven't heard of that movie. Alright, definitely got to watch that one. This movie I'm going to recommend because I want people to kind of give it another chance. I want people to look at it a different way, and I hope that in the short time that I have with you here, I'll be able to persuade you to go and watch this movie again. And that is 2005's Constantine, starring Keanu Reeves. Now, why do I want people to give this a second chance? Well, I want people to give this a second chance because I think this movie is badass. Now, that is coming from a guy who is also a huge Hellblazer fan, and Hellblazer is the source material for this movie. It's the comics for this movie. So, Hellblazer. Why do I love Hellblazer? Well, I love John Constantine. I like the con man. I like the mysticism, and I like the fact that he's like, a British guy who really doesn't give a shit about anything, and I just always love that about him. I mean, I have the Hellblazer comic signed by Garth Ennis, and this is actually the Dangerous Habits comic book, which is the source material of how John finds out he has cancer and like what he does to get rid of that cancer. I mean, here's another thing. I have the Hellblazer #1 at 9.8 CGC. This was my own comic book that got sent in, and it came back at a 9.8. I was so excited when this thing came back at a 9.8. So awesome. I love Constantine. I love Hellblazer, and I also love the Constantine TV show that we only got one season of. I don't understand why. Oh, that's right, because it was on NBC and they didn't give it a fair shot. That's why. Yeah, I'm still mad about that. Anyway, I've gone on now for long enough about Hellblazer and Constantine TV shows and all the stuff that I love about John Constantine and the Hellblazer. But I want to just get back to the Keanu Reeves 2005 Constantine movie. Now, they called it Constantine in the movie and not Hellblazer based off the comic book because this movie and the movie Hellboy with Ron Perlman came out around the same time. So they didn't want people thinking Hellboy and Hellblazer and they would get confused. The comic book's called Hellblazer because it was originally called Hellraiser, but they didn't want people getting confused with the Clive Barker Hellraiser. So Constantine and Hellblazer just really haven't had a good time on trying to get their name right. But Constantine's cool. We can call it Constantine. That's his name. So just call it that. They did the same thing with the TV show. This movie is badass. Like I said, it takes parts from source material of Hellblazer and puts it into a comic book movie. Now, this movie came out in 2005, and yes, comic book movies were popular in the early 2000s. Spider-Man, X-Men, the Batman Begins, those movies came out around that time. But, they weren't really like, oh my god, I gotta go to the movie because a comic book movie is coming out. And that whole, Marvel, wave, and when, those comic book movies came out, and it was, cool to, know things about comics and stuff like that. It was right before that wave hit. I mean, the movie did well in theaters. It made its money back, I think, double or triple. Why we haven't gotten a sequel to this movie is crazy to me. It always seems like Constantine gets a one and done run. I'm not really sure. The comic book went for 300 something issues. It ran for, 12 something years in a kind of DC Vertigo, it's kind of like its offshoot adult kind of content, for that. And it did really well in that aspect for being a niche kind of comic book. It was not a Batman or wasn't a Superman. It was this thing about a film noir kind of thing, but it had angels, demons, supernatural stuff like that in it. Well, they did the same thing with Constantine. There's parts of this movie where it does feel like it's an old film noir movie, the way that it's shot and the way that it's like the time. It feels like it's kind of like in time with modern time, but just that kind of added touch with time. And Keanu Reeves does a good job. Okay, he doesn't look like John Constantine Hellblazer from the comic books with the blonde hair and the brown trench coat, and I mean, sometimes it's a white trench coat. Like it, it's it's not that John Constantine. It's this John Constantine. And yes, he still wears the coat and he's got black hair and he's from Los Angeles. He's not from England. But still, it works. It does work. Keanu Reeves does a really good job, I think, playing this. Now, also, too, this is Keanu Reeves when not everybody loved Keanu Reeves as much as they love Keanu Reeves now. This movie next year is going to be 20 years old. There's a lot of time to pass. And it seems that everybody loves Keanu Reeves now. And they should. I've loved Keanu Reeves since, Bill and Ted. It's been like, it's a thing where there was a point where people just weren't totally on board with Keanu Reeves. I remember when this movie came out, people were like, I can't believe he's playing John Constantine. That movie's going to suck. And I don't think they really gave it a chance. Like I said, it did well in the theaters. It made its money back and everything like that. But I just want people to go out and re-watch this movie and give it another shot, knowing that it came from source material. I mean, the scene where the flies are like coming out of the dude's mouth. That's a panel. That's a panel right from the first issue of Constantine. The dude when he's drinking and like that's from Original Sin. Right here. That's right from the first thing. So they took parts from there. It's just they don't think that people really knew that. And I don't know. I want people to go and give this a rewatch. Come back here and let me know. Maybe you don't even need a rewatch. Maybe you watched this the first time and said, yeah, Constantine's badass. They did an okay job with it. It's a fun movie. I love watching that movie. So, it's right now, it's streaming on Max, HBO, Max, whatever you want to call it. It's streaming on there right now. You can go and check it out. Come back here. Let's talk about it. Do you love it? I love it. So, let's talk about it. And we will see you next week for another recommendation. And until then, let's rewind and be kind. Thanks.